Hey everyone, welcome back to the Superhero Show. Now, last week on the show, we gave you our thoughts on Suicide Squad and we asked you to email in with your reactions to the movie. And we got loads and loads of stuff. So
I will say one thing, I was prepared for the worst because we didn't like it, and we know what happened when we didn't really like Batman v Superman. Comments were quite nice underneath the videos.
Comments were good. Civil discourse online, that's what we're championing. So today's going to be a bunch of feedback. It's your opinions on Suicide Squad. It's things that you've noticed, and also bigger questions about DC's movie project.
Yep.
So should we just get stuck in?
Why not?
Cool. So first email I've got is from Renata, and he's from Quebec in Canada, and
Bonjour.
he just gives, again, bullet points. Excellent. Lots of bullet points going on. Not everybody, and that's okay if you're brief. And he says there's just a bunch of stuff always took him out of the movie. He thought it was quite a difficult movie to get into. And he said, why split Deadshot's flashbacks, 2 flashbacks in the first 30 minutes? Why some flashy flashbacks with on-screen letters for some characters but not others? Too many songs. Rick Flag, not funny. Who is Slipknot? That's a good one. What was the point of Katana's flashback? I'm baffled as to why Rick Flag has all the letters of Deadshot's daughter on him. Who shoots down both helicopters? And this is my favourite. Harley gets into the glass elevator, waving goodbye to the team still outside. Then she battles 2 minions going up. Mind you, the elevator doesn't stop. As the doors open, the squad is waiting for her on whatever floor she was going to. How? Good point.
Excellent points. I've got really nothing to add.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a few things that we said last week, I think. I was certainly flummoxed by Rick Flag having a pocket for letters in his combat jacket.
I should say, like, we're not, the whole point of this is not to give it a kick in. We're going to be discussing this. Some of it just naturally, some of it is negative, some of it's positive.
I've got one from Stephen in New York who says, do you believe that we'll get a true version of what Ayer set out to do, similar to the BVS Ultimate Edition, with a large enough outcry?
I don't think that version even exists in any way anymore. Whereas I think Snyder was allowed to do what he wanted and made more of it, and then they had to trim it down, because there's that interview with the editor of the movie just said like the original cut was just like 4.5 hours. So that was necessary. Whereas what we think has happened from all these reports and Hollywood Reporter, that Ayer probably set out to make one type of movie, which maybe was smaller and maybe grittier and darker in tone and focus, and then it's been elaborated on in subsequent reshoots. So I don't think even the Ayer version exists, and if it does, I don't think it's one they want to put out. No,
and Jared Leto's the one who's been talking about all these scenes that are missing.
Your mate?
Yeah, spoke to us about it. That was an interesting 3.5 minutes of my life.
There's tension between you.
Some fun stuff to watch on the site if you want to check it out. But David Ayer has said that I believe he said there won't be a director's cut. This is my version now. Obviously, he has to say certain things when he's doing press. But right from the word go with Batman v Superman, there was suggestion that this would happen. Whereas I think it would be a massive turnaround if they did do that at this point. But you know what? If there's money to be made by releasing, I guess they'll probably see how this Batman v Superman sells, the extended cut. Well, if there's money to be made, they might cobble something together.
I wonder. My only reservation with that is whether the original version, they'd have to like put in brackets and say this is not continuity, because if it has a different ending, you've got this other version circulating that is like, it doesn't even have the Enchantress villain, for instance.
I don't think we'll see the so-called David Ayer cut, even if that does exist.
Okay. So this is Hugh. Hugh is from Melbourne, Australia, and he raises some kind of annoyances, but also some interesting questions. So where do we think this movie sits chronologically in terms of BVS and Justice League? For instance, he brings up the point, when we see Boomerang, he's captured by the Flash. Does this mean that Batfleck meeting the Flash has already happened? He has a JL uniform. I'm not sure if that is a Justice League uniform, because I think he's already making his own in the Justice League footage. And do we think Flash is going to Sydney to capture Captain Boomerang at that point? So he's unsure on the chronology of the film. And we were a little bit unsure of that when we were debating the mid-credit sequence.
Yes.
Whether, I think it has to take place, I think its chronology is the same as the movies. Happens post-BVS, we know that for a certainty, because we see all the Death of Superman stuff. And it sits prior to Justice League, because otherwise why are the Justice League not stopping Enchantress? And he hasn't recruited them yet.
Could it be both though? Could the flashbacks to capturing Joker be pre-Batman v Superman.
Oh, those flashbacks.
Yeah, and the rest of the film post-Batman v Superman.
I think the Joker flashback should be. I think the Joker, it depends on... He's probably caught them several times, and that's the most recent. I think the status of those scenes is a bit up in the air, but I think it definitely takes place prior to Justice League.
Yeah.
The only line is when he says, "Me and my friends." I think he's just being presumptive they'll be his friends.
Yeah.
Because he wants friends. He's always wanted friends. And then I think Hugh just had a problem with the fact that why do these directors assume I haven't been following a pretty basic movie? I swear that 2 or 3 times towards the end of the movie, not to mention the overkill at the start, we hear a flag or someone else say, "Oh, we need to get Enchantress's heart. Oh, her heart is now explodes. This is how we defeat her. How dumb do they think I am?" It's quite a laboured plot point.
Yeah. Agreed. I have an email from Ethan in Ottawa. A few Canadian emails today. Bullet points from Ethan. I like Suicide Squad, at least a 7 out of 10 for me. However, some things held it back immensely, preventing it from being 10 out of 10. Number 1, the Joker. The Joker should not have been in this movie, plain and simple. Number 2, the villain. Was too big scale for a group of misfits such as the Suicide Squad. They should have made the mission scaled down to make the character's mission more believable instead of saving the world. Number 3, the tone. Stick to one tone. In my opinion, when the movie was fun, it was fun. People say we should stick to one tone on this show.
And we say no. Too much meddling from above. Talking of meddling, this is Al. Al says, "Just watch your Suicide Squad spoiler cast, and while I enjoyed the movie, I can't say I'm surprised you didn't enjoy it. On a positive note, with you guys now reading the information regarding Suicide Squad's production drama, I hope maybe you'll now see that Warner Brothers was maybe responsible for BVS being disappointing, not Zack Snyder, in terms of forcing Snyder to add in Wonder Woman and the JLL cameos. I hope that Wonder Woman and Justice League can escape Warner Brothers' wrath, because after this story, I feel worried for those two. What are your thoughts?"
Was he made to include Wonder Woman? Also, can you imagine that film without Wonder Woman?
It's one of the best things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think maybe there was slightly different pressures on Snyder. I think while there's obviously the outcome, I don't know. I almost think for a lot of the production they were quite positive and confident with Batman v Superman. Yeah, it got delayed a little bit, but I don't think it's because there were doubts. There wasn't the talk of the big, massive reshoots that Ayer had to deal with. We heard about more problems before and since about Suicide Squad than we have of BVS. I think they seem quite shocked about the reception of BVS when they were doing the set visits for Justice League.
And the trouble is, this is all speculation. Like, we can only judge what we've watched.
Yeah.
And who knows if... I don't even know if there was meddling with Batman v Superman, but if there was, maybe it was because Zack Snyder was making a worse film. And the same with Suicide Squad. Maybe the David Ayer cut that we, so-called a David Ayer cut, was worse than the one we're seeing. It's just speculation, so I don't think we can really judge it on that because of that. Nico from Chicago here. Besides the first MCU film, Iron Man, the next few solo films weren't that well received either. Incredible Hulk essentially killed any chance of a Hulk solo film for the foreseeable future. The Thor solo films have been the weakest of the solo Marvel films, and Captain America the First Avenger wasn't fantastic either, since it had so much setup for the Avengers movie. So why are these DCEU movies getting so much hate? I personally enjoyed Suicide Squad. Was it good? Depends on your personal definition. But none of the DCEU films have been terrible or unwatchable. So my question to you guys is, what exactly would the DCEU have to do to win over the general viewers? Make better films. Well, I disagree with a few of these points, but it's just opinion, isn't it? I thought bits of Suicide Squad was unwatchable. I think it's a fact that Captain America First Avenger was pretty well received. I think it's unfair to say it wasn't.
Yeah.
As was Thor, people like Thor 1 as well.
And like even the Hulk movie, it's not very good.
It's quite watchable, that film.
But it wasn't panned in the same way.
No. Iron Man 2 and Thor 2, I think, are the two really weak.
I think the low points of the Marvel
ones.
I think what those movies did, even though they vary in quality and people like them more than others, I think each one is still relatively self-contained. It flows in a way that Suicide Squad doesn't flow. It has memorable moments that were either funny or exciting, and it had the big heroic moments that you remember. Thor taking on the in the town. You know, there's moments in them, and also you had a sense they were building towards something. Whereas these movies, the fact that we're debating scenes so intensely, like. There's emails here about what that scene really means. I don't think we were having that level of uncertainty about those early Marvel movies.
And I think we've not really talked about this, but certainly the last couple of years when we've been looking ahead to Batman v Superman, on this show we've discussed the fact that these are two different approaches, and it was interesting to see which one is better. Marvel, a bunch of standalone movies building up to the team-up films. DC, bang, Man of Steel, then bang, straight into the two introductory films for all these characters. And I think we're seeing that the problem is it doesn't work as well, because you've got to do so much work in the first half hour introducing all these characters. They don't get space to breathe, they don't get proper development, their introductions are largely weak, and therefore the films feel really imbalanced.
And you think about it from just a pure planning process. So if you're making a series of 1 or 2 films, like early on, there was a couple of year gaps between certain early films, like Iron Man, Hulk, and there was 2 years before Iron Man 2. You could defer making a lot of decisions in terms of the look of characters, where they would be introduced, who would play them. With these movies and this approach, you're making hundreds of big decisions that you're writing in indelible marker. Early on. So for instance, that is your Joker. You've gone in this movie where you've got to like cast this person, this person, this person, do all their costumes. You've also got to do Joker, which is a huge character, rather than do him 3 years down the line when you've had 2 years to let the idea gestate. And that's the problem. They've got to get it all right, or at least 90% of it straight out the door. Much more difficult.
You kind of really hope that when Affleck does his Batman movie, he can just do his Batman movie and not worry too much about all these other things that are in play at the moment.
Because there's so many in play simultaneously. So this is another point. This is Amelia. Amelia's written in, and we talked about this a bit last week about a lot of the jokes falling flat. And she says, I noticed in my screening that whenever Harley made a joke that had been featured in the trailer, no one found it funny. But whenever we saw her making a joke that we hadn't seen before, it was much better. And I think once again, the marketing ruined the aspect of the movie as it did with BVS. And I think the marketing for Suicide Squad is almost more fascinating than any other recent movie because of the powerful effect of those trailers and how much people love the tone of those trailers. It feels like that, if you believe a lot of the reports, was the thing that really deformed this movie.
Well, they retrofitted it.
Which is fascinating if you think about it.
But it's tough. You've got to put some of your best moments in your trailer, and you can say that about any comedy, to be honest.
What do you hold back? You want to show enough to get people in. And then she goes and say, my final point is very important. That slip shot, he can climb anything. Yeah, I could climb anything too if I had a grappling gun.
True.
Great point.
Slip knot, not slip shot.
Doolally
Frank from Brighton.
Hey.
Are you a superhero, Doolally Frank? Because that sounds like an awesome supervillain name. While I really enjoyed Batman v Superman and thought you were overly critical, I didn't feel the same about Suicide Squad. The Joker-Harley dynamic just didn't work for me. Joker caring about Harley in a romantic way gives him a weakness just like the superheroes he's always plotting against. Very un-Joker-like in my book. One simple change of a scene, have Harley kill Tattoo Man, then it gives her character a reason to be dressed the way she is, using her sexuality to make people vulnerable.
Yeah, we talked about this in the office. I really thought she was going to kill Common in that scene when the Joker kind of gives her away and she's like on his lap and she's in his face. I thought she was going to bite his nose off or something.
The tension's building and building.
And then
it's weird.
And then in that moment, similar to the pencil sequence in Dark Knight, I would be scared of Harley in a way that I'm not in that movie, that I thought would be useful for her character.
Yep, I agree. But it's interesting that the fact that Doolally Frank disagreed with us about Batman v Superman, but agreed with us about Suicide Squad. And I felt that in the comments. It felt like everyone's on the same page with this one. There was very few. It was much more. I'd say it's about 90% of people disappointed with this film. Whereas Batman, I think there were a few more people that liked it.
There's a really good clip circulating on Twitter at the minute, which is from a Batman the Animated Series episode, which showcases what the Joker and Harley Quinn's relationship was originally. Because I think it's been massively romanticized in recent times, and especially in this movie it does that as well. And it's a great clip where he beats her and he throws her out a window, and he's really abusive to her. It's not this kind of star-crossed lover thing. And I think it's quite interesting to go watch that and remind yourself of what the original dynamic was in Deanie and Bruce Timm's.
Sounds complex.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
It's heavy. I'm not saying it's not. Sam from Medicine Hat, Alberta, Canada. I don't know if Medicine Hat's a town. I hope it is. I hope it's not just a company.
We're big in Canada right now.
But I love the fact he lives in Medicine Hat. Hope that is a place.
Amazing.
Why didn't DC just build on what the world Nolan had set up in the Dark Knight trilogy? Some points to think about. An established Batman, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, so you don't have to retell the same old origin story. And it's a slightly different. We've got a successor Batman, not Bruce Wayne. A universe where there is an aspect of realism and superheroes are believable. A universe that has established characters and villains in which the studio can branch off into different movies. The tone and style of the Dark Knight is established and DC can feed off that. Nolan can spearhead the operation, and a franchise that is already at the time competing with Marvel and going toe to toe with them instead of restarting everything. There's part of that, because it's weird, because when Man of Steel launched, even though it wasn't in continuity, there was this great gesture that had Christopher Nolan's name on it.
Yeah.
And obviously that's like fizzled out very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to know what actual involvement he had apart from lending his name to the trailer.
Yeah.
Part of me thinks that is a very self-contained thing, because they never mention really any other superheroes during that trilogy.
No.
It's kind of great as it is, but it would have made sense. And I think, I wonder if Warner Brothers were even thinking in those terms. I think they just got this massively successful Batman trilogy, whether they thought...
And I bet part of it as well is they don't want to piss off Christopher Nolan. He's the biggest star they've got, and if they said to him, we're going to do some sequels, but without you directing, he would have been pissed off, I think. And I bet there was an element of, because they would have loved to have done a Batman 4.
Oh yeah,
Of
course.
Those films were a license to print money, and they were well received.
Acclaimed,
2 out of 3 anyway. Interesting point though. Joe Gordon-Levitt though, not tall enough. He's about my height.
Yeah.
Batman isn't short.
He's now Edward Snowden.
He is. I'm looking forward to that film. Tom Stevens from Bradford, not in Canada. I just wanted to talk about the current DC universe and how disappointed I am. We are now 3 films in with Man of Steel, Dawn of Justice and Suicide Squad, and I honestly think DC might be better off calling it off as a bad job. The universe they're trying to build is just not working. DC have one of the richest catalogue of characters at their disposal, yet continue to make underwhelming movies. These movies should be getting better and better, yet I can honestly say Man of Steel is still my favourite.
I agree.
I think we'd agree with that. And I think I said on here that there were talks a few months ago about them doing just that.
Call it a day.
Yeah, I'm imagining this is probably about the time they were seeing rough assemblies of Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad, and they knew there were problems there. And I believe there were discussions about, let's just pull the plug and start again. But they're so deep into it that they had to get moving on Justice League that they just push forward.
It's an interesting couple of sentences in that Hollywood Reporter takedown or insight on the Suicide Squad about how the head of Warner Brothers, apparently there was a lot of pressure, like a pressure internally. Like they didn't want to make more DC movies immediately after Dark Knight Rises, but all the shareholders in Warner Brothers know they have these licenses.
Can't
and like you said,
afford not to.
a potential license to print money.
Yeah.
They're looking over what Disney are doing with Marvel. How can they not do it or try to do it? And obviously they try to do it very quickly, and it's kind of, it's struggling. But it's a big decision to call it a day. But then you realize, what's the cut-off point when you're going, are we damaging these characters?
Yeah.
By, a lot of people have gone to this movie and not liked it. Some people have, but a lot of people have gone to this movie and go, I didn't really enjoy that, and that's their first impression of all these characters. I don't enjoy them.
Which is a problem for moving forward. But I mean, we should say opening weekend was huge.
Yep.
In the UK, it's the 3rd biggest of the year, behind Captain America and Batman and Superman. And there has been a big drop-off, and we record this before it goes live, so I'm not sure what the drop-off will be throughout the week. But
so that's the thing that kind of hurt BVS after massive opening weekends. Okay.
Is this me?
I've got one. So this is Judon from Jersey. Saw Suicide Squad last week. Enjoyed it very much. But once again, even before the movie came out, there were so many negative reviews, including from IGN, of course. My question is, why is it that fans and critics have 2 completely different ideas of what a movie and should not be? So I put this one in towards the end because I think it's a really interesting topic. Because I think the tendency is to set it up as an opposition.
Yeah.
Fans and critics, because fans can be critics, even doing it like not getting paid for it.
Yeah.
And people who are critics are also fans. Like you and I are huge fans of all this stuff. And I think what you do is there are critics who like these movies, and there are also fans that dislike Suicide Squad. So I think it's more interesting to like not create this like false opposition, because I don't feel any antagonism, and we can just talk about the relative merits of the movie.
Yeah.
Because we're all coming from it with our own preferences in what we like in a movie. So I don't think it's a critics fans thing.
No, and there's a weird implication, like, as you say, that we aren't fans.
Yeah.
I find that quite strange. Like, I wouldn't be doing this job if I didn't love films, and I love my... And equally that, you know, you're not a DC person because you didn't like one DC film. It's like, no.
I know, it always really upsets me, that accusation, like, there's some bias and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, the only bias is my personal preferences if I enjoy certain things in a movie. Like, I love the Dark Knight trilogy. Batman Begins is one of my favourite superhero films, as is the original Richard Donner Superman movie. Both DC characters, but...
If the internet was just starting when Batman and Robin came out, would we be in the same situation where we're saying this is a bad film and people telling us
like,
it's good and we're wrong?
Also, I think being a real fan is being critical of the stuff you love sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, it's not accepted, because I kind of made a little wisecrack about how in Suicide Squad is my favourite bit was when Batman exposed a child to gun violence in an alleyway. Something we talked about after the movie. And it's obviously I was just making a sarky remark. And somebody contacted me on Twitter and said, oh, if you just want to see the same Batman story again and again, go watch the Nolan films. And it's like, no, I care about Batman. And it's not, being a fan isn't just accepting any version of the character just because it's said to be Batman. Being a fan is knowing what that character is about and expecting a good representation of that character, I think. And for me, that's what being a fan is.
Yeah, and getting pissed off when you watch Thor 2 and reviewing it on the site and saying that.
Yeah.
That bloody villain. Final email, this is from Chris, who says, he's in Pittsburgh. It was an average movie at best. Like with Batman v Superman, I feel that somewhere buried beneath Suicide Squad's mediocrity is a really awesome movie, and I think it could have benefited doing a couple of things differently. First, get rid of some of the characters. Next, limit the Joker to flashbacks in the final scene. He did nothing to advance the plot. And finally, I found Jai Courtney's Captain Boomerang to be a really fun character, but he did nothing to justify him being in the Suicide Squad. I think those are all really good points. Definitely too many characters. Well, it's not too many characters, but the film couldn't support them. The characters weren't given moments or given backstories, or that's the problem.
Yeah.
It just wasn't really well structured in that way. And I think we totally agree with Jai Courtney. Why is he in the squad? Like, what's he bringing? I thought he was fun. I could have done with seeing more of him, but what was he bringing to the party? And I even like... I know she's the most popular character, but I'm scratching my head now thinking why... What purposes are they using Harley Quinn for? A mad woman with a baseball bat?
Yeah.
Just get a soldier.
Yeah. And the soldier does pretty well at the end when he kills himself to save the day. Anyway.
Chris, sorry he didn't use bullet points, but he couldn't think of how to articulate his thoughts.
It's all right.
Well, you made 3 really good points. Put bullets in front of them.
And on that bit of feedback, thank you so much for the feedback. We read it all. Keep sending it to us at supershow@ign.com. And until next week, for everything on superheroes, stay right here on IGN.